Hey team, it's Steve from Fitness Past 40, and today I want to break down something that sounds really scientific, but it can have a huge impact on your training, especially if you're in your 40s or even beyond that, in your 50s like I am. And now recently I went for some tests in the laboratory. So of course I'm talking about VO2 Max testing and lactate threshold. Now recently in a previous video, I have called the VO2 Max totally a vanity metric, but should you even care? Can it help you in your fitness? And what is it? So today I'm going to talk a little bit about this and how it relates to helping you train not just harder but smarter. So VO2 Max is basically the size of your aerobic engine. Now it's how hard you can work, how much oxygen your body can utilize when you are working full send on a workout or on a very tough run. The bigger that number, the more power you can generate aerobically. Now, if that number is something like 52 milliliters per kilogram per minute, sounds like a mouthful, I know, that's mine, and that is a pretty solid number, especially for somebody in their 50s. Humble brag aside, we'll get to the relevance of, my experience and what that actually means for you. And regardless of where your number is, you can actually improve it. So let's break it down a little bit more and discover what we can actually do with these numbers. So we've established that VO2 Max tells you the size of your engine, but the lactate threshold, LT1 and LT2, they tell you how efficiently you can utilize the fuel in that engine. LT1, or your aerobic threshold, is where you begin to accumulate a little bit of lactate, but your body can clear it. And below this threshold, your body is mainly using fats as a fuel. LT2, or anaerobic threshold, is where lactate builds up fast. Fatigue begins to set in, and you can't hang out in this zone before blowing up, or think of it as redlining. So you can't actually spend too much time in here without destroying yourself. Now these thresholds are crucial to know what pace you can set yourself to sustain before you actually fatigue or before you actually blow up. Now here's where it gets interesting. The LT1 and the LT2 are measured as percentages of your VO2 max. The higher the percentage, the more efficient the body is at using oxygen before fatiguing. So in my test, LT1 happened at about 62% of my VO2 max, which was about 9 kilometers per hour on the treadmill, and my anaerobic threshold LT2 happened at 76% of my VO2 max, and that was at about 11 kilometers per hour. That's decent, but my goal is to raise these thresholds to 70% and 80% respectively, so that I can run faster, recover better, and sustain a higher intensity for longer. So part of the significance of the lactate threshold 1, lactate threshold 2 in relation to your VO2 max is as follows. Now, I said my VO2 max was 52. Now imagine there's another athlete equally handsome as I am, and their VO2 max is also 52, except they achieve their lactate threshold 1, so their LT1 aerobic threshold is at 70% of their VO2 max instead of 62 like me, and their anaerobic threshold, so LT2, is at 80% instead of me, which was I think 76%. Now this means that the athletes whose LT1 is 70% of their VO2 max can run faster than me at a lower heart rate and probably sustain that for a longer period of time. So mine I think was 143 beats per minute, and I was running at 9 kilometers per hour on the treadmill, and that was my lactate threshold 1, which was 62% of my VO2 max. Now if somebody, the equally handsome guy had a higher LT1 at 70%, they'd be able to run maybe at 10 or 11 kilometers per hour on the treadmill, and maintain a lower heart rate, therefore being able to sustain that for longer, not fatiguing and not building up that lactate, or even hitting their LT2 probably not as quickly as me either. So that's the significance of the LT1 when two people have identical VO2 maxes. So how do you improve them? Well, the good news is it's not about smashing yourself every day. It's about training smarter, not harder. So to raise your LT1, the aerobic base, for me, that would basically be to run at a pace where my heart rate is below 143 beats per minute. And that's obviously zone 2 cardio. To do that for 45 to 60 minutes and 2 to 3 times per week. Now to raise my LT2, the anaerobic threshold, what I want to do is sustained intervals of something like 3 times 10 minutes at a comfortably hard pace. So something like CrossFit Metcons, where you're training at a comfortable but hard pace and just keeping below the red line. So not completely gassing yourself out and having to quit, but just bumping underneath that red line so that you can continue, but at a seriously high intensity. And this is distinct from trying to grow your VO2 max, where the intensity has to be a little bit higher, 3 to 5 minutes, all out, super hard intensity. And I think some of the protocols that exist in this space are like the Norwegian protocols, 4x4. I think it's 4 minutes of work, 3 minutes rest, 4 times. But the brutality of those intervals is pretty astonishing. If you've ever tried it, it is not pleasant. And VO2 max training should only be maybe once a week, because it demands so much energy and it is so tough to recover from. So now you know VO2 max is your engine, LT1 and LT2 are how efficiently you're using that engine, and yes, you can improve both of them. So whether you're training for a Hyrox, CrossFit comp, or just want to feel like a machine in your 40s or 50s, this stuff actually matters. If you found this helpful, then hit like, drop a comment below, and if you'd like me to walk through my own tests, then let me know. Or even if you want me to walk you through how to build a training plan that is built around your own VO2 max and aerobic thresholds and anaerobic thresholds, then let me know. I'd be happy to help. So train smart, stay powerful, and I'll see you in the next one.